Patrisse Cullors, one of the Black Lives Matter co-founders, admits to throwing two parties at the organization's $6 million Los Angeles mansion. Cullors says she never used the property for personal gain when the news came out about the multi-million-dollar home. But in an interview with the Associated Press, she said that she hosted her son's birthday party and an event celebrating President Joe Biden's inauguration. Now, we've reached out to Cullors to get her on the show. We're waiting to hear from her. Now, of course, many folks have been going after her, critical of her as well. In fact, here's a snippet, if you will, I'm going to play in a second, of the interview that she did with the Associated Press, talking about the criticism that she and others have endured as a result of their finances.
To pay for your home or the homes of your family members or any other funds that were donated to Black Lives Matter to essentially enrich yourself?
No, I have never used Black Lives Matter donations to pay for any of the properties that I owned in the past or own right now. You know, the idea that Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation received millions of dollars and then I hid those dollars in my bank account is absolutely false.
Is there any truth to the reports that your family has been hired to work at the property that was purchased by Black Lives Matter?
While my brother is the head of security and my mom and sister did work at the property, there are also dozens of other people who work in the organization that are Black folks and are doing amazing work. It's not like I literally, opened up the bank accounts and was like, I'm bringing all my family and friends in. Folks had skill sets. It's been a really bizarre experience to know the truth and to have false and misinformation be spread about me, especially around my own personal resources that I've worked my ass off to attain.
So let me bring my panel in here. This is, so it's a couple of things here. And this is the quandary that I believe activists today need to look at the past as a way of understanding criticism. Anyone who has read books and seen documentaries regarding Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. knows that his wife, Coretta Scott King, wanted a new home. She said, Martin, we've got 4 children, we are expanding, we need a new home. He was reluctant to do that because he said, what will it look like to our critics if I get a new home? When he won the Nobel Peace Prize, he accepted it on behalf of the movement and opted to give the money to the movement. Again, Coretta Scott King was not happy because she was the one who was having to deal with the finances of the family. Dr. King was very cognizant of the perception of what it would look like if people said that he was enriching himself. And so you have critics of Patrisse and Black Lives Matter who say that the book deals that she has gotten, the production deals, all of those things have been a result of the movement. And so using those millions to then acquire property feeds those critics. Over the weekend, she posted a video on her Instagram page where she said that Candace Owens and a crew she had with her was standing outside of her home wanting to ask her questions about this. This is a perfect example, Jeff, where leadership has to understand that your critics are always going to come after you by looking for the money.
Yes.
And I understand, Patrisse, now me doing an interview with the Associated Press to clarify this, but I warned other activists about this type of stuff years ago, that this is how they come after you. They look at what you're driving, they look at what you're wearing, they look at where you're living, and then they can say, oh, you're grifters, you're thieves, you're stealing money. Then it's hard to shake that. And so you can't have a video of you and two of the leaders at the house toasting champagne and talking about your work or using the home for personal use. That is how there's always an effort to discredit the movement by discrediting its leaders.
Yes, absolutely, Roland. And I think, a couple of things emerge here. I personally could never personally criticize Sister Cullors or any of the movement leaders. I don't know them personally. You know them personally. What I can speak to is actions, and what I can speak to is a process. As a longtime leader of a nonprofit, I'm a person who also consults with nonprofits and young people who want to start nonprofits and foundation and do work. When you study history, you can see that there's something called, first and foremost, movement capture. This is what Dr. King was really concerned about. He knew that as soon as you start making significant strides to freedom, corporate America, the establishment, they tend to throw money at you. There's nothing inherently wrong with that because money moves America. But what I've come to know personally is that transparency is important. So several years ago, I launched an effort to build tiny homes. We wanted to build tiny homes. We did a GoFundMe report page for that. I stayed in a tiny home for 45 days to crowdfund this money. We raised $60,000. We promised that within 30 days we would build the tiny homes, and within 10 days we delivered. The building that I'm in now, the Infinity Center, we raised over $100,000 for it. We purchased the building in less than 6 months and spent 2 years renovating it. I say that not to toot my horn, but I do say that so that younger people out there and new people to fundraising understand one thing. You have to ask the question that a person who is a donor is asking: what am I giving my money for? If you are giving your money to an organization that is supposed to be fighting for liberation, then yes, it is going to be disconcerting and angering, at the very least, to see them inside a mansion toasting with champagne. If you gave your money to help support a movement, then you have to explain why chapters, including the local chapter here in Nashville of Black Lives Matter, no longer want to associate with the national organization because they cannot get hold of the financial resources. We're talking about over $90 million. Optics are terrible. We also have to make sure that we reinforce the message that we have reinforced on this show, that you have reinforced as well. You must have your finances in order. Whether you're Morris Brown or Black Lives Matter, NAACP, Urban League, that is the first place they are coming. People do not mind if you are successful. Many of us looking back in the past, I say I wish King would have taken the money and spent it on his family. His family sacrificed, because years later, 40, 50 years later, we say what? Oh, they're digging gold because they are licensing his image and likeness. You have a family who lost their patriarch, who was assassinated, and now you have a single mother raising 4 kids. She was right to want and to expect a new home. But I think there is a gray space in the middle that we have to launch ourselves into to let people understand that, yes, this is a double-edged sword. You got fame because of a movement, and yes, you turned that fame into personal gain, but you have to keep that separate. You have to keep it transparent, and you cannot be angry when people ask you to come and to speak to them and explain where you are. That's what we've been asked. That's what many people have been asking for months now, to just sit down and have a conversation. And sometimes you have to say, you know what? My judgment may have been off, but we've gotten it in order. We've not even heard that. yet emerge from this situation?
Well, and look, Congo, one of the big issues that I have, again, is that Patrisse Cullors is the one who keeps doing the talking. She's no longer with BLM. The existing leadership of the Black Lives Matter Foundation, they have not done interviews. They have not been out here. They have not been offering transparency. I've been communicating with them saying, when are y'all going to talk? And I get they're going through their 990s and preparing those, but you're gonna have to come clean because staying quiet ain't good enough.
Look, in this day and age, I mean, we talked about Dr. King back in the day and his scrutiny, but in this day and age, every day you're silent, it's like 90 days goes by, quite honestly, because with social media and the way people are trying to destroy these organizations, you cannot be silent. Silence is your enemy right now. And one of the challenges that's going on with the Black Lives Matter organization is that they're also preventing future people from wanting to get involved in the movement. I was teaching one of my classes up at American, and I had a student from Brazil who was interested in Black Lives Matter, but was a little skeptical. And this was just 2 weeks ago, Roland, and said, wait, didn't they just buy that $6 million house? They didn't know much about the organization, but she saw it on some conservative news story because she leans conservative and ran with it. And then I had another student in my other class doing that as well. My point is that the more they stay silent, they are allowing too many other people to control the narrative about them. And so when the current leadership comes out, it's going to be too late. And like Reverend Carr was saying, with Patrisse and any others who are involved in the organization, come clean about any mistakes that were made. Just own it. And people, we've seen this all over the place. People are willing to be forgiven if you can just come clean if you feel like you made a mistake. Because what people are doing right now, just as people critique what we call prosperity gospel, people are trying to turn Black Lives Matter activists into prosperity activists. And they are not that. And we believe that you can make mistakes and come out and speak up for it. But if you don't do it now, by the time you get up, they say a lie can travel around the world while the truth is still getting the shoelaces on. So I appreciate the sister for doing that interview. We need more of that. And we need some real just confessions if there were some things that could have been done better in hindsight. That's how people will roll with you.
Michael.
Yeah, it's hard for me to add anything that my co-panelists just mentioned. It's, one of the things that I think we all know, or at least we should know, is kind of 101 is the rules are different for us. And even I'm sure that there's some critics or folks on the right that'll say, well, here's what happened to a white organization. That may or may not be true when you find a few. But for us, the rules are always different. And until they, I think, have kind of an independent audit, also, as again has been previously mentioned, take some responsibility and then move on, because you're dealing with a couple of certainly challenges. One is this one, and the other is that the right is trying to define BLM as not protesters, that they're looters or rioters. So, when you put all that in context, everything has to be on the up and up. So I think they should have an independent audit and then take responsibility for what they need to take responsibility for. If that means there needs to be a change in leadership or a change in policy, whatever it is, they have to do that. Then when that independent audit is done, they present it to the world and say, here's what this independent auditor found. Here's where there's some mistakes. Here's where we did well. And I think that's the only way to really move on, because right now everything's on the defensive and excuses, and so it's going to be difficult.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?